Hello everyone and welcome to another Guild Wars 2 video. Today we're going to be going over the Living Story update of the Dragon's Reach Part 1. Now if you recall at the end of the last update, it was decided that a good plan would be to try to meet with all of the leaders of Tyria and get them together at a summit to discuss how best to handle Mordremoth and his spreading influence. This patch begins with Casimir sending you a letter telling you that she has been able to arrange a meeting with the Pale Tree. Once you arrive at the Umfalos chamber, you catch up really quickly with Rox, Bram, and Casimir. After that, Loken comes over, and after still not recognizing me, even though I'm a Sylvari who has been here multiple times before, escorts you over to the avatar of the Pale Tree, who actually does recognize you as a Sylvari and greets you. While discussing with the Pale Tree, you will mention that you went into Scarlet's device and that what you all saw and try to get meaning from it, and the Pale Tree will admonish you very seriously and say that she is all that stands between you and the greatest darkness you'll ever know. She also basically confirms after this that while the Sylvari are immune to the corruption of the 4 dragons that we have been dealing with, they are not immune to Mordremoth's corruption, and we can be changed by it. After that, when you tell the Pale Tree that Mordremoth is fully awakened, she says it's true and he's fully reached awareness. Loken reacts very badly, and it's pretty much confirmed that the Pale Tree knew about Mordremoth for quite some time. After sending Loken away because whatever you're discussing is too private for him to hear, she basically asks how far his minions have spread and reacts badly to the news of that, and agrees with you on your plan that you need to make a summit of the world leaders, and saying that if you can convince them to come to the Pale Tree, she could host the gathering. You go back to your companions and basically agree that Casimir will go to Divinity's Reach to get the Queen to participate, Rox will go to the Black Citadel, and Bram will go to the Norn. In the middle of making your plans, you receive a note from Tyria that's titled Mordremoth's Reach. This note basically says that news from the Asurans basically say that vines matching the kind that attacked Fort Salma and Fort Concordia have appeared in Iron Marches and advising you to go and investigate it. After telling Casimir, Rox, and Bram, they agree that that is a good idea and of course worry about their respective races, for instance Rox worrying about the Black Citadel, and they go on to their races to try to get the leaders of them to cooperate, and you go on to the Iron Marches. Once you arrive in the Iron Marches, you talk to some of the Iron Legion soldiers there, who tell you to go around and help curb the Mordrum's influence on the zone, which involves killing different, like, a veteran Mordrum Gravelash, and saving a bunch of the workers from vines, getting samples from vines, stopping the corruption being spread, so on and so forth. It's a bunch of dynamic events scattered throughout the zone with legionnaires standing nearby each of them to advise you on what to do and where to go next. The events are pretty self-explanatory, and they will be in that zone, I'm sure, for the immediate future at least. After completing all of these events, you receive a letter from Tyria saying that Councillor Plunt, who while agreeing to go to the council, has gotten wind of her waypoint altering device and will not agree to go to the council until he sees it working. After arriving in the instance, he basically states this once again, and is using that to hold it over everyone's head so he can see the waypoint device, and most likely take some measure of credit for its construction, because he's a counselor on the Arcane Council, that's what they do. After convincing the counselor and his guards to leave Tyria alone while she tries to build the device, she sends you with Scruffy as your guard to go and collect the few more needed components while she finishes up the design. Once receiving all of the required pieces to build her waypoint device, she informs Councillor Plunt that all of his efforts were wasted and that everything will be destroyed just to freak him out, and then goes into the heart of the leyline chamber, aka where Omad's machine was, to turn it on. After turning the waypoint recalibration device on, she makes a nice announcement that she will not know for sure if it's affected the waypoint system until about a few weeks from now. Councillor Plunt then states his great dismay with the few weeks timetable and reminds everyone that he will not go to the summit until the waypoints are no longer endangered. After discussing this with Plunt, you discuss with Casimir, who says that she was able to talk to Countess Anise, who very quickly came back with an answer from the Queen saying that she will attend the summit in the Pale Tree. You decide that the next location you should go to is to meet with Bram and Air and Air's Stonewright Steading. While en route to see Air, you'll receive a letter from everyone's favorite Sylvari in the entire world, Marshal Traherne. Traherne basically says that on behest of the Pale Tree, he will also be attending the summit to discuss Mordremoth, and that he would like to meet with you before the summit to, one, tell everyone the pack's basic plans and so you could relay it to everyone, and also he just wants to discuss what the future is with the pact and the plans that the pact has made to deal with Mordremoth. So the pact is in. Once you arrive in Air's house and stand through a couple awkward conversations between Bram and Air, you have a nice discussion with her about the attendance at the summit and what the Norn can do to attempt to fight Mordremoth. She gives you the answer which most Norn give, which is, that's not my problem, and we have too much to worry about already with the Sons of Svanir encroaching on us and Jormag always being present. And the answer that Nut Whitebear would never go to a summit like that until they are able to be pushed back. However, despite this dire news, you make a plan with Air to go and attack a Svanir main base in Frostgorge Sound and destroy a giant totem that they have built to make sure that they are not able to continue their pushes and push them back. With this breathing room that you would give the Norn off of that, they would hopefully be able to attend the summit and also put their support behind whatever plan comes from it. A plan is made between the three of you that Air and Bram will stay back and try to hold off all the Svanir reinforcements while you on your own push into the Svanir base and take everything out single-handedly. So you make your merry way to Frostgorge Sound, and after making your way single-handedly with hundreds of other players into the Svanir base, you are able to destroy the dragon totem. After the totem is destroyed, Air, Bram, and the MVP of the night, and the MVP always, Garm, arrive, and Bram and Air have another nice, awkward mother-son bonding moment. Air basically tells you that after this feat that she will relay the news to Nut Whitebear, who should be more inclined to attend the summit considering you've helped him so much. And you say that you're not able to go back to the feast that they're planning and you must go on to the Black Citadel to try and convince the Char to assist. So once again, off you go on your merry way, gallivanting all the way across Tyria to the plains of Ashford outside of Beridan's tomb. Once you arrive, you catch up very quickly with Rox, and then you get to watch a wonderful exchange between Ritlock and Rox, showing the loving care which Ritlock always loves to show to Rox and most of the people around him, aka he's a jerk like he usually is. After he's done with his little rant, he begins talking to you about the reasons why you're here and all the stuff, why he's so mean to Rox, yada yada yada, and you basically tell him that you want Imperator Smodor to be able to attend the gathering. Ritlock responds with much the same reaction that the Norn did, which is, we're not going to be able to do that with the Branded and the Ghosts all breathing down our necks, and we don't have the room to go deal with it, and why is this even our problem? This is other people's problems. Once again, though, he also has a plan of how to ease the pressure on the Char so that they will be able to take some of their effort towards Mordremoth. His plan, however, is a little bit bigger than just destroying some dragon totem. His plan is to actually cleanse part, if not all, of the foe fire. If the foe fire was, of course, to be eliminated, then the ghosts would all disappear, or at least stop respawning over and over and over like they do, and the Char would definitely be able to give a lot more effort towards Mordremoth. He says he's found a ritual to be able to cleanse the foe fire using his sword Sohathan, and says that all he really needs for the ritual is also the crown. This crown was the crown that King Alburn wore while he was king of Ascalon, and it also shattered into several pieces when the foe fire happened, much like Magdair, his sword, did. Ritlock says to be able to do this ritual, he needs all the pieces of the crown back together to reassemble it, and then he should be able to test out at this place of power, which is Beridan's tomb, how well the ritual will work at cleansing the ghosts. So off you go, doing some random events in the open world once again, and you acquire all of the pieces of the crown and come back to Ritlock. Once you arrive, you see that Imperator Smodor has also come out with Ritlock, and basically agrees that if this thing cleanses even some of the ghosts, like any of them at all, he will for sure attend the summit. So you accompany Ritlock down into Beridan's tomb, eventually coming to the place where you had to fight Beridan's statue in the very first Char mission, which is still destroyed from before. Once you arrive in the part of Beridan's tomb where the statue is, Ritlock begins to prepare for the ritual. Once the ritual begins, the ghosts are obviously not very happy about this, and reappear and possess the parts of Beridan's statue which are left, reassembling it together. What follows is a boss fight against this possessed statue, where you have to basically kill any of the healers which will try to come and heal the statue, and also every once in a while kill ghosts to power up Sohathan to break the statue's shield, which you'll have around it, which happens very infrequently. After Beridan's statue is destroyed once again, Ritlock completes his ritual with the very trademark yell, "Ascalon, I free you from this curse," and slams Sohathan into the ground. Sohathan opens a portal from what people are saying is a portal to the underworld, And you can see many soul kind of things going into the portal, which you can reference are the ghosts of Ascalon's souls going down. And so Hotham will eventually fall down and, well, not really fall, it will plummet down into the hole after it. Ritlock, wanting his sword back most likely, but also to try and end the curse and win the war against the ghosts, jumps into the portal to the underworld after it. Rox makes a move to jump into the portal as well, but the portal closes before she can ever reach it. Smodor then basically announces that thanks to your help and the fact that Ritlock took several ghosts down with him, at least alleviating some pressure from the Iron Legion, that he will attend the summit. He also assures you that don't worry, Brimstone will be back, it'll take much more than that to kill him. And with that, the Dragon's Reach Part 1 is complete. So once again, we'll go over some fun theories from this patch. There's not really all that much to go over, considering that most of this patch was running around over and over trying to get everyone to agree to go to the summit, which will be big next patch, but there is still some fun stuff. So first up is in the very first instance of this patch when talking to the Pale Tree. She doesn't ask who Mordremoth is or what Mordremoth is, and she also even mentions that she was waiting for the moment, and she feared when this day would come. Her main guard recognizes immediately when she says Mordremoth's fully awoken and reacts badly. So obviously the Pale Tree knew that Mordremoth was there. She also mentions that she was the only thing that's standing between you, a Sylvari, because I'm Sylvari in that conversation, and the deepest darkness we've ever known and the corruption of that. So, Pale Tree knew about it. She's been guarding us from it. Does that mean that the Sylvari are in fact minions of Mordremoth, or does that just mean that they are susceptible to his corruption? Considering Mordremoth is very much seems to be like Jormag. It's a corrupt from the mind. Jormag promises power, which corrupts them. Mordremoth, I'm not sure exactly how he does it, but it seems through insanity. He seems to corrupt people. That's what he did to Scarlet, and that's what he did to Aaron. So even if the Sylvari are not minions of Mordremoth directly, they are a very mind-focused race. I mean, they have the dream. At least the Sylvari of the Pale Tree have the dream. And the dream sort of joins them all together, and when they're coming out of when they're being born, that is what shapes them. Now think of it also this way. If we are not already minions of Mordremoth, then that means the Pale Tree is not a champion. But think how powerful Mordremoth would become if he were to corrupt the Pale Tree. Not only would he be able to corrupt the tree itself, but he would be able to corrupt the dream, which could have a terrible influence on all the Sylvari that are already being born, and also give him a factory basically to make corrupted Sylvari over and over and over through the Pale Tree and through this corrupted dream. So, this leads very much credence to he's probably going to make an appearance, if not him, a champion of his. It's most likely going to try and go after the Pale Tree very soon. I mean, that would make sense to me. It seems like the thing he would gain the most power off of is the Pale Tree itself. What better time to attack it than when all of the leaders of Tyria are gathered together at the target he most likely already wants to take over. Next up, it's fun to wonder why exactly Mordremoth likes the Iron Marches so much. Now, it's pretty much confirmed that Mordremoth is going after magic. He's gone and attacked 2 forts just because they were holding magical items. He attacked a priory caravan in Iron Marches for their magic items, but I don't think he would be attacking this large of the area just for that caravan. Is it possible he's trying to go after the Chaos Crystal Caverns? If so, there's no vines in there. I went down there and checked. But it's obvious he's looking for something in Iron Marches that is very magical. Could be the Searing Cauldron, but it's not anywhere near the Searing Cauldron. That's down south. He's attacking up north. I'm not exactly sure what his motive is in Iron Marches, but it should be brought up that he's got one. He's always had one when he's attacked things. And his motive is usually something very, very magically powerful and potent. Nothing really too revealing happens during Timy's instance, in my opinion. There's some nice Arcane Council politics going on about how they don't like Zoja, and Zoja's run too loose for so long, blah, 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 blah. But nothing really new lore ground. It was already known that Arcane Council didn't like Zoja, so there you go. Also, nothing really happens with the Norn storyline. You just go and destroy the totem, and whoop-de-doo. It's nice that Air and Bram are obviously getting along much better than they were before, and that's pretty much all that really that instance portrays, is that they don't hate each other anymore. They kind of respect each other. And finally, we come to the instances involving Ritlock and the attempted cleansing of the ghosts. So basically, there's an old Ascalonian legend which says that to get rid of the foe fire, to cleanse the foe fire, you need a descendant of the Ascalonian throne, which doesn't mention the crown, but it says you just need the descendant of the throne, and you also need to bring the twin swords, Sohathan and Magdair, to the site. I honestly don't remember if the legend implies that you need to bring both of the swords to the site or one, and I think there are actual instances of the legend being mentioned where both of those things are mentioned. It either requires one or two. The legend's not clear on that. Either way, Ritlock's plan is to try and do this, except for I don't think Kachar is a descendant of the kings of Ascalon, unless you want to go way, way back to when the Char were there, and he's a descendant of whoever was leading Ascalon then, but that's outside. It was a human legend, and that means it could be wrong anyways. However, it's possible that he could be satisfying this just by having the crown. The crown could make him a descendant of the kings of Ascalon, because he has the crown of Ascalon on his head. So that is actually possible true, and it could actually match the legend just because he has the crown, which the crown was not mentioned before, so that should be the significance of it. Now, when he opens this portal at the very end, and it sucks all the ghosts through, Sohathan also falls into the portal, but it is a portal that is either to the Mists or the Underworld. There are theories on both. And either way, the Underworld is basically part of the Mists anyways, so whatever. Now, the Mists have been said multiple times to be where the spirits of the dead go when they die. So, Ritlock then jumps into the portal and goes into the Mists or the Underworld. Now, the question is, how is Ritlock going to get back out of the Mists? And what all is he going to see, and what is he going to learn while he's in there? Because Sohathan is probably going somewhere significant that it would plummet down into there like that. The origins of how Ritlock ever got Sohathan are still very murky, and he even, when you ask in this mission, makes sure to say that's irrelevant. Now, ArenaNet normally doesn't just randomly drop hints for no apparent reason, so I'm sure that this is going to come up. How he got the sword is going to be important, and it will play into why he went into the Mists and how he came back out of it. He might have gotten the sword from the Mists, because Sohathan was originally on the Ring of Fire. I don't really know what to say anymore on Ritlock, because it's very, very interesting what happens there, but it leaves a lot open, and really there's not much established to go off of why the sword did that, because it was just it was a legend. There's no instance of it happening before. Now, for one little final tidbit, because it's actually something I forgot and I had to go back in and record after I was in the middle of recording this, is if you go back to Fort Salma, there's a very, very interesting thing there that is not there from the patch before. If you remember where Belinda was standing on the wall on the western side of Fort Salma when you first came up to the instance and saw her there, if you go there and look now, you might see something a little disturbing. What will be standing there is actually a ghostly outline, and even when you target it, even says a ghost of Belinda. If you're able to get up on the wall, which you can pretty easily do if you look around and jump around a lot, if you try to interact with this ghost, it disappears and will respawn a few minutes later. Now, this leaves some fun theories as well. We haven't seen Marjorie all patch, so Marjorie could be trying to do something as a necromancer, which brings Belinda back as a ghost. Or there's an established reason in the past for people in the world of Tyria to come back as ghosts if there is something there that's important that's keeping them there. Like, for instance, in Sparkfly Finn, there's a bunch of pirate ghosts which have come back because the treasure is being disturbed, and even they come back all the way from death to make sure that people don't steal their treasure, that kind of thing. Just something really, really important to them. So Belinda has either been brought back by Marjorie, who has been able to sort of do that in the past, as seen through the short story, or there's something which she has come back for, which is important enough to come back from death. And once again, there's the same thing I mentioned last time. ArenaNet doesn't usually just throw things in there unless they're trying to mislead us. So there's a reason why this ghost is there. There's not a reason. There's not just, oh, it was just for flavor and ha 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 ha. There's going to be a reason, and it's probably going to come up within the next couple patches. Anyways, I think that's all for theories and stuff looking forward into the future. And now for my assessment of this patch. This patch and this episode is probably the worst episode of the Living Story Season 2 so far. Now, the first two I've liked quite a bit, so that doesn't really say too much, and it does beat some of the episodes from Living Story Season 1, but there are some problems here. So the focus in this update seems to have shifted largely into open world areas. Most of Iron Marches is one section of the living story, and also attacking Frostgorge was a very open world thing. Even going to get in the crown pieces, you had to do events, which really that wasn't too big, but you had to do events to try and clear the area of something to be able to find the crown pieces as well. Now, this might work really well if you stumble across it, or if you and a group of friends get there and do the event chain all the way through, and it feels great then. But there are a few problems that come up here. So, Zerging is almost always a problem with his events, and trivializes it to the point of just, you have no idea what's going on and you're just killing things. 2 is arriving at the events when they are almost done or they are already completed. I know when I was doing the crown pieces, I did one of the 4 events which were required for it, and the other 3 times I waypointed to an area and walked up to a random pile of rubble that had a green star over it and looted the crown piece. Same thing with the dragon totem. I arrived there right when the last event finished, walked into the camp, and destroyed the dragon totem. This kind of stuff sort of trivializes what you're doing in the living world and sort of steals away how much your involvement helps things, because, I mean, going up and looting a pile of rubble is not exactly fun or engaging. Now, I'm not saying that you should never put open world sections in the living world. It really requires that. For instance, the stuff you do in Dry Top, where you have to follow a trail of breadcrumbs or read a bunch of notes and that kind of stuff, that's great. That is really good in the open world. I also like when you have boss fights or something like that in the open world, and that's good. Like, during the Lion's Arch updates in the first season, when you had to defend Lion's Arch every 40 minutes or whatever, every hour it started over, and also where you had to end up fighting the giant Scarlet hologram and the Watch Knights. Now, I know there were some problems there with the fact that there were not mega servers, so smaller servers weren't able to do it. But now with mega servers, those kind of big open things that are designed for giant groups are good in the open world. But these small events don't really work that well anymore, and there's not really a good way to do that, especially during this first week. Now, in the weeks going forward, this was not going to be near as big a problem, but during when the release actually happens, it really, really makes it look bad. Not to mention the fact that most of the events in Iron Marches were bugging out and stalling all the time, completely preventing progress. Now, for the story part, I can't really say too much bad about that. There were some really interesting things which happened in the instances, and some nice little tidbits dropped, like talking about Zoja and what she's been doing, kind of the little hints about what she's been doing, and just nice little flavor thing, giving background to the characters we all know from our personal stories a long time ago. It's not exactly it doesn't progress the story very much this patch, and it's not really as engaging, but most of that is because this patch is a build-up patch for whatever happens in Part 2 and possibly Part 3. I don't know how many parts there'll be. And this patch is all about just getting everyone to agree to meet together to make a plan to fight a Mordremoth. So, the story is sort of hampered by that. There's not much you can really do with that besides getting people to agree and doing stuff for them to do that. All in all, I stand by what I said. This is the worst patch so far of Living World Season 2. But at the same time, it's kind of also like half an update if you look at it that way. So it's part 1 of 2. So you can't really judge it too badly until you see the full scale of it. It's like reading the first half of the book and hating it, and then the last half is amazing. Either way, I think that's pretty much all I have to say on the Dragon's Reach Part 1 update of the Living World. If you have any questions or you know anything different or wrong from what I said, please leave it in the comments below. I would love to be able to correct that. If there's anything I missed, also make sure you point it out. And thank you all for watching. If this is your first video you've ever watched and you wanted to learn more about the living world and how we got to this point, please check out my channel. I have a video for pretty much every living world update except for the smaller ones from Season 1, which I combined together like 2 updates into one video. Anyways, once again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you once again on the next episode of the Living World of Guild Wars 2.